Hello everyone, I'm Tally, this is Farrell, and we are bored of it. And today we're going to be reviewing City of the Great Machine, a one versus many, kind of hidden movement, kind of deduction game that has been receiving a fair bit of buzz in the last few months. Now, this was a Kickstarter that funded back in late 2021, so it's just making its way into the hands of the backers and also the reviewers. You can play this solo, cooperatively, or competitively.
So, if you're playing competitive, one player will take the role of the titular Great Machine, who is obsessed with creating the perfect city. However, it has gained control of the city essentially through human laziness, as always, and has now found that humans are annoyingly unpredictable and don't follow the rules, so it has to do something about making its city well run. However, there are some revolutionaries which take issue with this, who the other players will play as, and they are trying to make the populace rise up and overthrow the Great Machine because they don't really appreciate having a complete lack of free will or rights or anything like that. Please note, before we get to how the game works, that we were provided this copy by the publisher as a review copy.
City of the Great Machine is for 1 to 4 players. If you play in the solo or cooperative mode, then all of the players play against the Great Machine. Otherwise, in the main competitive mode, which will be the focus of our review, one player takes on the role of the Great Machine, whilst all the other players take on the role of the Revolutionaries. There are always 3 Revolutionaries in play out of a possible 6, each having a unique special power. The goal of the Great Machine is to activate the master plan, which happens when this track reaches 12, and the goal of the Revolutionaries is to incite 3 riots or incite 2 riots and have the discontent track maxed out. Every round begins with an event card being flipped, and these will alter one of the rules for this round, perhaps reducing the cost of something or hampering either side in some kind of way. They also offer the Great Machine a way to advance the master plan, which might be in the control of the Great Machine or in the control of the Revolutionaries. For example, it might be something like, if the Revolutionaries visit a major district this round, then advance the master plan by 1. Then the Revolutionaries will decide which districts they want to go to that round and pick the relevant access card and play it face down. Or they might just choose the access card for the district they're already in. Any discussion must be done in front of the Great Machine. So to communicate with your fellow revolutionaries, you have to be a bit cryptic and clever. Before moving, the Great Machine will take their turn. They have 3 servants, of which they can move to different districts, and then each one can take 1 action. The most important action is probably raid, where they can attempt a raid on a district, but they can also rearrange the city or pass new laws in order to make life more difficult for the revolutionaries. Then the revolutionaries will take their turn by revealing their access cards, and they must move to that district that matches their access card, and then they can take 1 action. However, if they move to a district where the Great Machine has tried to raid, then they're going to get captured. And then the Great Machine will get to decide whether they are allowed to continue their turn, but the master plan will advance by 1, or cancel their turn and take away their resources and their access cards.
The Revolutionaries also have a number of actions available to them, but in general what they're trying to do is run around and incite the citizens to riot after finding out who they are. This is because there are 6 different types of citizens, and the higher the level of discontent, the more of these types of citizens will be ready to rise up and start a riot. At the beginning of the game, you don't know what level anyone's assigned to, so you're going to take action where you can peek at who they are and then you know their level, and you can also take an action to raise discontent to make it more likely they will riot. To actually do a riot, you take the riot action, and what you need is to have more citizens who are ready to riot than citizens who won't riot and guards in that district. Now, as a general overview, the revolutionaries are going to try and run around, raise discontent, and incite citizens to riot, while the Great Machine is going to try and hamper them, try to capture them through raids, and to try and complete these goals on the event cards every round.
The first thing to know about City of the Great Machine is that despite it being referred to a lot as a hidden movement game, it actually isn't really that. It deals with this mechanism quite differently to other hidden movement games, which mean players that aren't usually a fan of this type of genre might quite enjoy this. Typically with hidden movement games, the non-hidden players are spending their time trying to deduce the location of the hidden player, leading to a lot of brain work. Another issue can also be that if a player gets a rule wrong, it can torpedo the whole game due to the amount of secrecy that's involved.
In City of the Great Machine, the only thing that's hidden is where the revolutionaries are going to move to, and it's not hidden for very long. On top of that, playing as a Great Machine, when you're trying to guess where they're going, it often feels more like gambling than being deductive or puzzle solving, because the revolutionaries often have so many options available to them and paths of action, you can't 100% know where they will go. And it means that you're going to, almost every round, at least when you're playing raid tokens, you're going to get tension, you're going to get drama, you're going to get payoff, and you're going to have catharsis. And there's going to be elements of tension for both sides, which is pretty fun. On top of all that, even better is the way the game works with this kind of hidden information. There isn't anything that the players can mess up so bad that it will ruin the entire game and experience, like can happen with many of these other hidden movement games.
Leading on from this, one thing the game does really well is offer players interesting decisions. The event cards, which occur every round, are a particular highlight here. As often, they'll incite the revolutionaries to act in a more predictable manner or have them hamper their own plans in order to prevent the Great Machine from scoring a point. Not to mention, they also change up a rule every round, which further shakes up the decision space. It creates a wonderful dilemma for both sides and adds new angles and considerations to the gameplay every round. In particular, playing as the revolutionaries is a non-stop option buffet. Not only are they provided with a variety of clever ways to go about the long-term goal of starting riots, they can also take advantage of the special powers that are different depending on which revolutionaries they choose to play as. In each of our games, it's always felt like the revolutionaries could come up with some kind of unique way of inciting the city to riot. In one of our games, they came out all guns a-blazing, bashing every guard in sight until the Great Machine had hardly any guards left to prevent the riots. And in another game, they quietly went about identifying the citizens, biding the time, and then striking just at the right moment and trying to incite 3 riots in one round. Unfortunately, we found playing as the Great Machine a little bit drier. You feel so much more limited in what you can do, which is a bit antithetical to the theme of the game, where the Great Machine is supposed to be in complete control of the city. Your servants don't have unique powers and you have fewer actions available to you. Worse, the revolutionaries can undo almost everything that you can do. You want to draw a directive? They can just bin it. You pass the directive? They can cancel it. You repair a guard? They can just break it.
Frustratingly, the revolutionaries always feel as though they're in control of their goal and have their fate in their hands, whereas it doesn't feel like that with the Great Machine. Because the points you get to advance the master plan, you get 2 ways. 1, the event cards, 2, from capturing revolutionaries in raids. But as we said before, the event cards will either refer to one party or the other. So about half the time, getting that point is not within your own hands. Then you would say, okay, well, you've got to capture the revolutionaries. Well, the issue is because they have so many more options available to them, there is a lot they can potentially do. And you do end up more or less just guessing where they're going to go. And we don't mean that in a reductive way. It's just that if they have 6 potentially equally good options, how are you going to decide where they're going to go besides kind of luck? You're going to have a lot of experiences of being, should I put it here or should I put it there? And then you reveal and you literally got that 50-50 wrong. Worst of all is the fact that you're going to have to decide between advancing the master plan by 1 and letting the revolutionaries take their turn if you capture them in a raid, or cancelling their turn and taking something away from them. Now, in the early and mid-game, this is a really interesting, fun and thematic decision. It's one of these great decisions that we've been talking about previously. But when you get to the late game, it ceases to be a decision at all, because you're likely going to be in a situation where if you let the revolutionary take their turn, they can start a riot, or they could be so close to winning that you just can't risk letting them take that turn. And we feel that it was a strange decision to be able to start a riot even once you've been detained, whether you have the turn or not. Because what this then means is that the game late stage will end up becoming a holding pattern and being longed out, as the Great Machine will consistently stop them from having a turn if they can continue to catch them in raids, and the players won't be getting a turn. Now, it seems as though we've been very negative on playing as a Great Machine, and that's not exactly true. It's still fun and interesting and thematic, and you get real joy when you capture the revolutionaries, and it's really fun to stare them down as they talk amongst themselves and pretend that you can understand what they're going to do. It's just that me and Tally both felt that the Great Machine was more limiting and much harder to play as. If you're interested in City of the Great Machine, one thing you should know is that there is quite a lot of randomness for what is essentially a deductive tactical experience. You're rolling dice to see if you break a guard or evade capture. You're drawing event cards out of a deck that are situational and could be useless or could be game breaking. You're randomly assigning citizens at setup that can have a big effect on how the game plays out. It's possible for the Great Machine to draw an event card that, just because of the situation in the game, it's impossible for them to get a point from. Or a revolutionary could spend 3 rounds in a row trying to break a guard and fail every time because of a dice roll. And we're not saying that it's unbalanced necessarily, just that I think the game could be quite swingy based on all these elements of luck coming together. As an example, in one of our games, we have on multiple occasions had the card come out that essentially says the Great Machine gets a point if they don't raid this round. But it's come out at essentially the death of the game, where if they don't raid, then they're just letting the revolutionaries win. So it's worthless to them.
That said, all of this culminates in making each game feel pretty unique. You're going to have different city setups, different event cards each game, different directives, and different heroes with different powers being chosen. It creates some special narratives and some stories to be told. And don't grab this game if you want a perfectly balanced experience, but grab it because you want an experience, some drama and some intrigue. And this game is also really replayable. And what it does particularly well via the event cards that come out each round is keep each round feeling unique. So altogether, this culminates in a game that feels really interactive, really engaging, which also has a pretty nice cadence to its round structures.
It's worth noting that the game will feel a little different depending on which player count you play it at. And this is because you'll always have 3 revolutionaries in play, no matter how many players there are. So in a 2-player game, you're going to have a tense, terse head-to-head experience where both players are directly opposite and going straight at each other with full force. At 4, you're going to have a funny, collaborative experience where you're going to have to find interesting ways to communicate because the Great Machine can see and hear everything you're doing. 3 is probably the worst way to play, just because then either one player will have to control 2 revolutionaries and the other gets 1, or you're going to split that 3rd revolutionary between you, which can be a little difficult considering your limited communication. Final thoughts. City of the Great Machine is an interesting experiment that does hidden movement differently than anything else in the genre that's come before. In fact, it provides such an engaging experience that it might be something that even people who don't usually like hidden movement might enjoy. It's interactive, it's dramatic, and it's thematic.
That said, it's not going to be for everyone. Randomness of certain elements can have a big impact on the experience, which some people might not enjoy. We also found it less interesting to play as the Great Machine, and it's harder than the Revolutionaries, but perhaps that's best, considering only one player will take on that role. Overall, we really enjoyed our time with the Great Machine, City of the Great Machine, and we do look forward to exploring it even further. If we... very distracted by the chaos. If you enjoyed this review, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you're not already.
Definitely do that.
And please feel free to ask us anything about City of the Great Machine in the comments, or let us know what you thought of it if you've played. And we've
Thanks
got to
for
get
watching.
these some treats now.
Goodbye.
Bye.